Okay, I'm going to go ahead and get started because I know Dr. Menzel has a busy schedule this morning. So welcome to the May meeting of Scottsdale Parent Council. We'll begin our meeting by saying the Pledge of Allegiance, and I think oh, there it is in the corner. Okay, I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, we have our land acknowledgement. As we gather for this meeting, let us take a moment to reflect on the meaning of place, and in doing so, recognize the various traditional lands on which we do our business today. We wish to acknowledge this land on which this SPC meeting is taking place. For thousands of years, it has been the traditional land of the Hohokam, the Akimel O'odham, and most recently, the Salt River Pima Indian community. Today, this meeting place is still the home to many indigenous people from across Maricopa, and we are grateful to have the opportunity to live and work on this land. All right, so today's meeting will begin, as we always do, by asking questions to Dr. Menzel. And then we're going to hear from Christine Harrington about marketing and communications and probably more. And then we'll end with any representative updates and then the final executive board updates of the year. Okay, so if you have a question for Dr. Menzel, it's easiest if you write it on an index card. And I'll just lurk over here while I ask. What is going on with the Prop 123 renewal, and how will SUSD be affected? And then I want to add, last night, are you counting on it in your budget? Is that what happened in the M&O update?
Good question. So the legislature is on a break, so nothing's happening on Prop 123 now. Last week there had been rumor that the Republicans were going to put forward a bill that would be a referral to put it on the ballot in November of 2026. And the speculation, based on what people had been hearing, is that it would not have been just a renewal of Prop 123, but that it would have also codified in the Constitution protection of the universal ESA program that's in place currently. That, for educators across the state, would be a deal breaker. And there was a lot of pressure that was put on the legislature, and so they did not make any announcements. So we don't know what the majority in the House and Senate will bring forward. The recommendation we have is a clean renewal of Prop 123. The governor has outlined what that could look like, and that would be probably the best course of action. Whether or not that's where we land remains to be seen. It's important for people to let their elected officials know what they think about this. I believe that if you combine codification of ESAs in our Constitution with the renewal of Prop 123, it probably violates the single subject provision, and so that would create an issue that the courts would decide. There's never any guarantee what the courts decide, but on its face, it appears to be a challenge. So what happened in the budget last night is that the bulk of the $300 million for Prop 123 was baked into the budget assumptions by JLBC. There was a $75 million catch-up amount that was not baked into the budget assumptions, and so that's what we thought we might lose. In what we've heard related to the preliminary budget planning with the governor's people and individuals in the legislature is that they are expecting to also fill that shortfall of $75 million. That's why we took it out of our budget assumption, because we've had multiple ways of confirming the intent. If we lose it, that would be an impact of 1.3, 1.4 million for us, but right now we think that that'll be there.
So will that be on the discussed at the June governing board meeting for your finalized budget, or will you kind of?
So that would be the intent. Here's the big problem. The legislature has to approve. Well, has to. They could not do it, which would be really problematic. The state budget by June 30th. We have our final meeting June 24th. If they haven't approved theirs, then we may have to do a special meeting in early July, because the law says districts have to have their budgets finally approved by July 15th. So the sooner the state gets done, then we'll know. That'll be part of the conversation once we know what the state's going to do.
Okay. I feel like a theme of last night's meeting was budget, and this is kind of related. So is Echo Canyon School on the chopping block for 25-26 school year? And then can you also comment on what the process would be for any potential school closures. Like, what does that look like timing-wise?
So I would not frame it as somebody being on the chopping block. I would reframe it to say, we have some buildings that are under-enrolled, creating a financial challenge related to keeping them open. When you look at our buildings across the entire district and the 15 years of enrollment decline, we've gone from over 26,000 to 20,000 students in that period of time, haven't closed a building. So we have several buildings that are under 400 students. It's really hard to make the math work when you're under 400 in terms of efficiencies. So we're working with those schools that are under 400 to really focus in on enrollment growth. But if we can't reach those targets, then we have to think about how might we restructure, repurpose, and that could mean taking a building offline. This year is, we started the conversations a year ago with those that were under enrolled. I've said to this governing board, I think I said it at the enrollment meeting, we would have to make decisions about closure by December of this calendar year to give people adequate time to plan for the transition. So that's kind of how I'm envisioning the timeline. There's nothing statutorily that requires them to do it by December. They could do it in February or March. But we have to know for budget planning purposes if they're going to do that. And it has an impact on staff and on families. And so we're cognizant of those things, and we're open to creative ideas. But ultimately, our goal would be to grow our enrollment so that we didn't have to have the discussion about do we have to close a building.
What is the status of the booster guidelines, and will the district be seeking parent input?
So there was a meeting yesterday. I was not at the meeting, so I'm expecting to see a copy of the draft. And I did ask them to let me review it before they send it out for parents for input. I expect that'll come, if it's not by the end of this week, certainly next week. And then we'll get additional feedback before we finalize what that regulation looks like. There had been a subcommittee working throughout the course of this year, and so we hope to be able to finalize it before June 30th so that it will be in effect going into the next school year.
Can you tell us how many either cabinet or director level administrators are leaving, and then are they being replaced, or what's happening with those positions?
So at cabinet level, General Counsel Nick Bazan is leaving June 30th. And we did post for that position, and we got an overwhelming number of applicants. So 0 for those who are maybe listening. So we'll likely go back to the customized solution we've utilized when we had vacancies in General Counsel before, and that is working with our prepaid legal team, Jennifer McLennan, and others to be able to get the work done. It means that we won't have full-time support every day, but we'll still have support. Michelle Watt, Dr. Watt is leaving at the end of the year, and so what we did and the board approved last night is to create a new position description, Chief Communications and Information Officer. So it combines the role of overseeing IT and the role of overseeing marketing. Dr. Harrington, see how I am going to encourage you to get that next credential. This is aspirational. So whenever we have a vacancy, we take a look at, are there ways that we can restructure to reduce the cost and still provide high quality service? And Michelle Watt had suggested that this might be a way to do it, and last night the governing board approved that, so we'll take the next steps there. So that's the other reduction. We did, not at cabinet level, it's extended cabinet, but we also rolled the sole leadership into the community ed early learning position. So that also allowed us to realize 1.0 FTE savings. So we've been able to do some things to drive down district administrative costs, and we believe, at least at this juncture, that those are decisions that won't undermine our ability to continue to provide high quality services in support of our students.
So there was a lot of discussion, posting about the new social studies curriculum. So can you talk about what the controversy was, and was it approved last night?
Well, there were a lot of different opinions that came into the governing board, depending on which count you believe. It was just over 100 people weighed in, 68% or so in favor of adopting the curriculum, 32% not. You had a fair number of people speaking at call to the public. Arguments were made that suggested the curriculum was distorted, that it was left-leaning or progressive, only one side of history, misrepresented history. Those were some of the accusations. It's the textbook itself, if you looked at it, is more than 1,000 pages, very thick. And the objections that were identified came from a couple of pages, a few paragraphs. And even if you read those paragraphs, I think it's really hard to make the argument. There's nothing in that textbook that is anti-police. So one of the big arguments was this is anti-police and teaches kids to hate police. And that is not what's in the textbook. The textbook does talk about, in looking at the Obama administration, the emergence of the Black Lives Matter movement. And it talks about how some people in that movement pointed out that there's a disproportionate number of police killings of African American individuals. And then the counterpoint was also made that there are people who say that's not a reflection of what's happening. And so there was the counterpoint in the text itself. Yet the narrative that we heard from people at public comment is this is anti-police. It's not anti-police. The Peoria board approved it 5-0, and they've got a current police officer sitting on their board. So what we saw last night, in my estimation, was an attempt to, out of context, find something to undermine the work of our committee. The board saw through that, and on a 3-2 vote, approved the recommendation of the professionals who had done a very thorough and careful review to ensure that our curriculum complies with Arizona standards, our process aligned with state and board policy, and they brought forward a recommendation that will help our students actually learn history, to become critical thinkers, to understand the good, the bad, and the ugly. And there's a whole lot that we need to address. We won't shy away from our history. We can't ever get better if we don't learn from our history. And so I think that's what was at stake last night, and the 3-2 vote ensured that our students will be the beneficiaries of high-quality curriculum, supported by some of the best history teachers that you could imagine, and those were the people on the committee. And I'm grateful that they dedicated their time to be able to make this recommendation.
So also discussed last night was the fact that there was no parent on that committee, and I know that they, like it was said, that they tried hard to get parents to do that. And I just wanted to ask, because I've seen calls, and through SBC, we've helped share some calls. I did look at joining a committee for math. I'm a huge fan of math, and it's a time commitment I could not make work with my family and job, and then other obligations. So what, if a parent can't be on the committee, how can they still be part of the, like is there a chance to weigh in? How does that work, right? How do you involve people who can't give that time commitment, because it is a lot?
It's a great question, and the truth is it is a significant time commitment. Board policy, IGA, talks about that a curriculum committee has to have at least 50% of the committee comprised of certified teachers in the content area. It doesn't require in the board policy that there are parents. So we invite them, we want them, but board policy doesn't require it. And in part because there are multiple ways for people to engage with any curriculum adoption under Arizona statute. So all of the meetings are run consistent with open meeting law, which means you can sit and observe. You don't have to be on the committee, but you can be in the room, hear the conversation. Then there's a 60-day minimum review period where you can review the curricular materials that are being considered for bringing forward to the governing board. That means you can share your opinion, you can ask questions. The committee, as if you listened last night, talked about how even throughout the process, they were reviewing the feedback from people in the community. And so that helped inform their deliberations before getting to a final recommendation. So there are multiple ways interested parents who don't have the time to fully commit to a committee can still engage in the process and have their voices heard.
Okay, so I know you have a time commitment, so do you want to tell us where you're going?
The board approved some time ago a partnership with the Boys and Girls Club of Scottsdale to build a new gym and renovate parts of Tonalea to have a new Boys and Girls Club on that property. Today is the groundbreaking. Devin Booker will be there. Construction probably won't start until, exactly.
I gotta tell Amelia, don't be late.
The construction will probably start this summer. I don't know what the final time is for getting it completed, but during COVID, maybe early in, maybe just the year before, I don't remember when, there was a Boys and Girls Club location in South Scottsdale that closed. And that had an impact on our kids. And so with the new director, as we were talking about opportunities to partner, and we were also making the decision to go from a K-8 to a 6-8. We had space available, and it was just a perfect marriage where they wanted and needed to be able to provide service close to where the need is in South Scottsdale. We had facilities that could be repurposed, and so it's a great match.
All right, thank you so much.
Cool, thank you. Thank you for all you do in support of our kids. All right, let's grow.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, so our speaker today is Christine Harrington, and I guess, yeah, I'll let you take it away, and then after, or I don't know, how do you want questions? You want them at the end?
Anytime.
Okay.
I don't have nothing. I don't have something specific prepared. Rather, just really proud of the work that our team has been doing since I joined the district again. I was here first in 2014, 15, 16, 17, left, and then returned in 2021 after my position had been vacant for some time, and was really happy to come back. I just live down the street. I'm a parent in the district. So I felt like it was the right time to really be able to return and use my skill set to tell the really beautiful stories that exist in our community. So have been really committed to building out the team. And then sometimes we've lost some positions too along the way, but guided by our strategic plan, been really focused on community partnerships, growing opportunities for kids as it relates to work-based learning, and of course, growing enrollment. And so we've had a position that was for social media, a social media specialist. Unfortunately, we did lose that position. It was tough to fill, quite honestly, and we had survived for some time without it as the rest of us just sort of, also started posting to social media and guiding our principals in their efforts. So we have a digital content manager that I think has really been the biggest game changer in the last year, Emilio Torres, and he actually just won Arizona Filmmaker of the Year, in case you're interested. He just produced his first feature-length film, and for that reason, we're going to be losing him. He's gonna fly the nest, but understandably so. But he has really helped shape something, I think, beautiful for us that we'll be able to, have somebody come in and sort of take over as he passes the baton. But he, together, we've launched a number of podcasts. So, of course, we've featured SPC, and that is called the SUSD Spotlight, and you can, of course, pitch us ideas there. And then additionally, doing more school profile videos, highlighting partnerships and programs, and being able to do advertising like we have not done before. So because we have the talent in-house, we could afford, quite frankly, to produce a video and do some YouTube advertising, Hulu advertising, Harkins movie theater advertising, and those were just things we couldn't do before. So that's been really fun to see us sort of move into a much grander digital space so that we could be really intentional about how we spend our dollars, because digital advertising and marketing is so much easier to measure and then adapt. So our focus has been really focused on our under-enrolled schools in the last year, especially helping to grow them. With 30 schools, we kind of focus on the district as a whole, but then on individual new program offerings. So for example, Coronado Fire Science, that's been something that we are really working on, their entrepreneurship program, the new Math and Science Academy expansion at Mojave, and then again, focusing on those under-enrolled schools and really focused on our in-boundary families. So bringing back Scottsdale, I guess not even that we lost them, maybe they never were enrolled with us. And so trying to connect with those families and get Scottsdale students in Scottsdale schools.
So I just want to say, if you have a question, let me know, because it should be on the microphone or no one can hear it, like it never happened. But I have one first. Would you accept ideas or pitches from parents or like community for like things that you could do? Because just recently I heard some really good ideas.
Oh my
that I
gosh,
think we
yes,
should do.
please.
Okay.
30 schools, 3,000 employees, and 21,000 kids. I don't pretend to know everything. I
So how
absolutely
should, I mean,
need
how would,
sources.
what's the best way for those to be, like ideas like that to be communicated to your team?
SUSD Communications is an easy way. I'll tell you, we get a lot of ideas from our PTOs because I subscribe to all the PTO newsletters. And I mean, we have to be careful because obviously we can't get to every talent show and fundraiser and those kinds of things. But when they're really actually student centric or community events that can also be enrollment opportunities, because we know families choose schools also based on culture. And so when you get to see the family engagement and those kinds of things, I think about Desert Canyon and celebrating the Chinese New Year. That's such a community event, and that was definitely something then that we could further support. And so absolutely.
So is SUSD Communications an email?
Yep,
Okay.
SUSD Communications
At SUSD.
at SUSD.org. I mean, you can, of course, just email me.
Yeah.
Which is my name spelled out. So it's not typical of most of the emails in the district, and it's Christine with a K. So Christine Harrington at SUSD.org. But yeah,
So
always
the
open to
idea that
ideas.
was told was, so the seniors go to the schools in their learning community?
We're on it.
Yeah,
Yep.
and then the like
so
elementary
great.
schools made posters and hung up the like previous class, like the first, second grade classes of all of them. Like it was, I had no idea what it was, and I only got an angry bus selfie from my senior, but if they're like, right, if there are other crowd, like that just, it felt like a very community-based thing, and anyway, so.
Yeah, and so again, there is 4 of us in communications and a lot of ground to cover. But like I know Emilio just went to the Arcadia Learning Community one and hit some of those elementary schools where seniors were getting on the bus and going back. And so it's such a
Do they all do all the learning
all the
complexes
learning
do it?
communities
Okay.
do that.
Yeah.
And so, I saw the seniors at Cochise, but I saw it on social media where other schools, where other parents
Yeah.
and or teachers had posted about it.
Yeah.
And so we're really leaning into our principals as well. They are either it's the principal or the principal designee who is running the social media for the school. And they all also have cell phones and that are district issued. And so we've been really doing some professional development on branding and sort of your brand identity versus, and what you can control versus what you can't. And so just how truly critical it is to be at the forefront. We know nowadays, I think a big component of our marketing lens, and I don't know, I mean, you're all parents here, obviously. So I, as a parent, I don't go to our website a lot. I'm going to the PTO stuff, or in my inbox, I'm getting Parent Square emails, but I don't go to Mojave's website a whole lot. It really, in this day and age, I feel like is really more so a marketing tool. And so we've really been working with our principals and our sites on how we do better telling our story on the website, working with our web authors and our social media so that we can have everyone be a brand ambassador. Student voice is the best.
Can you tell us the life cycle of an idea? Sorry. Can you tell us what your organization looks like and the life cycle of a marketing idea that goes from idea to production to distribution, and what the distribution networks are?
Yeah, so I think it really depends on the scale. So, I mean, I could use like the SUSD Expo as an example. If you recall, you're all enrolled, so you may not have attended, although I look at so much of our marketing as not only recruitment, but retainment. When my daughter finished at Pueblo, what was that next step? Was it going to be at Mojave, or were we, during that natural break, going to go elsewhere? And so there are a lot of parents at different stages doing exploration, and we saw that a lot at our SUSD Expo last November. Now, that was a very large event. It really brought in site leaders, parent representatives, and students from all of the sites, as well as community partners. So there was quite a bit of planning and additional execution in that we had digital marketing assets landing on Harkins screens, Hulu, YouTube. We were running Spotify streaming ads. We were doing podcasts. We did obviously a lot of earned media, and additionally leaned on like the foundation, our chamber partners, the Charos and others to help us sort of market the opportunity to connect. Scottsdale Arts is a great partner. They were there, Not My Kid, and some of those. And so there was a lot of cross promotion as well. So that was a very We do e-blasts to households with children and social media advertising. That one hit on nearly every component you can imagine. And then sometimes it's a little bit more hyper-focused. So if it is, one school versus like Coronado Fire Science, for example, that's a program that could attract from a much wider area. And we know that with our CTE programs, even a Desert Mountain High School student might enroll in the Coronado Fire Science program and just attend for those couple hours a day. And so that was also, parent newsletters in addition to marketing and targeting some of the Mesa High Schools, geofencing specific schools and specific areas. So we do a lot of geofencing. When the other schools close, sadly, then there is an opportunity to geofence when we're looking for special ed teachers, when we're doing job fairs. And so we do try to be pretty intentional and thoughtful in our targeting.
What does your group look like?
So right now we have a graphic designer. We have Stephen Paluch, who's in charge of the web. We have Victor Bobbitt, who's in charge of graphics. We have Nancy Norman, who does a lot of our writing, so some of our newsletters, media releases, and then we have Emilio, who does video and photography, and myself.
So what will that team look like next year? Because you mentioned Emilio is leaving, and then Nancy also sent me an email.
Yeah, so Nancy is retiring and Emilio's leaving, so come July 1. After the governing board meeting last night, I can post Nancy's job, so I will be posting that very soon. Nancy, she does, and she's such a wealth of knowledge, and so I'm really gonna miss her, but she does all of the governing board celebrations, a lot of our media releases, works closely with our partners, like the Peach Square flyers, all of that. She does, everything. And she's my second, so she does, works with the media. She would be a spokesperson for the district if I was not available. Yeah, it's a critical position in our district, and I'm very happy that I can fill it and look forward to doing so as soon as possible.
I'm passing along a question from the PTO's marketing director. She said, can the district support a direct mail campaign for schools like Echo Canyon who are so desperate for students?
Yeah, direct mail is really expensive. And so what we did, when we had ESSER dollars, we got to explore some other advertising opportunities, marketing opportunities, and we did do some postcards. And we had QR codes on there. And granted, I think even just seeing it in your mailbox goes a long way. I don't expect everybody to scan, but the number of scans of that QR code could be counted on one hand. And so we just couldn't measure success in the same way we can with digital advertising. We've been able to do a lot of e-blasts, and I find that is the best way for us to tell a story because it's an email, we can tell more of the story. We can provide so many links, so many pictures. We really have been trying to elevate student and parent voice. And so you may have heard from your principals or even from your PTOs when I've been soliciting quotes, essentially, like tell me why you choose SUSD initially, why you continue to choose SUSD and those kinds of things, because I do think that resonates with others, that lived experience. And so even with our podcast, when we can elevate student voice, because they'll tell you how it is, that's what we really aim to do. And our e-blasts, they are so successful, they far outpace any sort of industry average with the click-through rate. And even they outpace our parent newsletters, anything else. So we really are targeting the right folks, and I'm hopeful that's in fact what's really been driving the uptick we've seen in tours. I think since we've rolled out a new website in July, and then additionally been really intentional about our e-blasts and digital marketing assets, we've seen a huge uptick in the number of tours. And what we end up with is a lot of data, but we've not been able to sort of close the loop. I think about anthropology, and they know I've clicked on an item, and they're like, hey, Christine, you know it's on sale now? And I'm like, they won't leave me alone, right? Or, hey, did you forget something? It's still in your cart. And we want to try to get to that point where we can loop back around with families and not just continue to pile on and necessarily create more work for our sites, but find ways to work smarter with the data that we have. And so Stephen on our team, he's just amazing and loves to learn. And so we're essentially creating our own CRM so that we can get this big data that we're getting from all these families who tour our schools and follow up with them. And it's a work in progress, and it's being rolled out at, we're starting sort of slow in certain places, like even just using bookings, for example, with Arcadia, because they get lots of tour requests. But, it used to be then, is the principal following up with a thank you note, or who's following up to say, hey, you haven't enrolled yet, how can I help? Do you have any other questions? Or, and such. And so we've been surveying tour families, trying to understand better what their takeaways are so that we can either provide a better experience for them and or find out how to close that loop.
So this is another idea I heard that I think is good, and I will say I'm in the parent mind space of like having high schoolers, right? So you're like thinking about where they're gonna go afterwards, and my kids are college bound, so I'm kind of in that shark-infested waters. Anyway, but so is there a concerted effort either at the site level of these high schools to say, here is where kids go who come through these schools, right? Here's their outcome, because that's literally all I hear from parents is like, oh, I'm sending my kid to Brophy because they have such a good, hit rate with colleges. And then I wanted to add, so I recently went to Arcadia's award night, and they had, it was a very cool visual. They had, there's like some AP award, I don't know what it is. It's like you have a good GPA and you got 3s on whatever 5 exams or more. They had, anyway, the highest level award for AP tests. The same number of kids that were standing on the stage for that were also for the EVIT presentation. And those kids, and then they told what what the certifications all the kids had, and they were really, right? Like EVIT has a lot of really cool stuff that kids can learn, and it was a really cool contrast, right? So like there's a lot of, right, the places you'll go, right? There's a lot of places that they could go from just this one high school. And I know I'm like a little myopic, right, because that's where my kids go. But is there an effort to get that out? Because that is what, even parents of middle schoolers are starting to think about that. And when they're touring, like, is that communicated to them?
They are thinking about it. I mean, even when I go on a family vacation, we're going to Washington, D.C., we're going to hit some colleges just because I have my 6th grader in tow. And when we went to Washington State, same thing. We want to just, I want her to know it's not just the college mom went to or not just the college grandma went to or something. So, so you're right. And what we do is there is a senior survey. And so we do work to collect that information. And I'd say we've gotten a lot better at putting all of that on the website. Some of our high schools were better than others in already doing it, but there is a concerted effort. And then in our fall magazine, we did list where everybody, so the class of 2024, the different colleges that they went to as well. So we are trying to tell that story more so. I think you hit on something big there, though, when you talk about like the certifications. And even college is expensive. Now, that 4-year experience is also epic if you can have it. But there is so much that we can provide in our schools that will help offset the cost, like the AP classes, like the certifications, like the dual enrollment offerings. And those are 100% differentiators between us and some of the other educational offerings, just because they do require additional certifications or masters for those teachers that are delivering that content. And so what I really want to do too is show, get down to the dollars and cents here and what that potential savings is if you graduate from one of our schools and you're work ready. Even if you're still going to go to a university, wow, the job you can have while working your way through college is much different than like the retail or, fast food job you might have.
Could you have like a card that you could hand people on a tour? Like, here's where students from Arcadia have gone. Here's the, like, you know what I mean? Like
in their tour information packet, that information should be there.
Okay.
Yes, and if it's not, we'll get them some more printouts.
It's like, I know of some families who like, and this is whatever, right? Like shark-infested waters, wanted to see that there were kids in the past from whatever high school they were looking at, which was Arcadia, because again, that's what I know best, but that had gone to an Ivy, right? They're like, oh, that's really important for my kid. So, right, if that type of information
Well, and only because you're talking about Arcadia, I know they are very good at collecting that information. And in fact, their form was sort of a model for some of that which we're collecting. So they should have that, but it's definitely something I will follow up on because you're absolutely right. And I think school choice now is so much like the college choice. So, and I think it's why you'll see an uptick in our enrollment for high school because it's like, do you want to go to a Big Ten school? Do you want to go to a liberal arts school? They're both awesome, but it's a very different experience. And our high schools being fully comprehensive, essentially have game day and all the clubs and, rigorous academics. And so you do see an uptick in our high school enrollment. And that's kids coming back to us or kids that were never with us, but are recognizing the opportunity our high schools have. And you get that feeling when you tour our campus and you hear those stories. Microphone. Oh, sorry.
I'm only a couple years out of the preschool thing, and I feel like if I had known more about the preschool, what the preschool offering was, I would have definitely tried to. But I did with my first daughter, and it was full. And I don't know if it's a cost, if it's a profit center or a loss leader, but what can be done, or are you guys doing anything to advertise the preschools that Scottsdale offers? I mean, there's a twos program. That's like unheard of. That's really hard to find. And I caution all parents who are like, I have a 3-year-old, I want to put her in preschool. I'm like, you're not going to find anybody who's willing to change her diaper, so I hope she's potty trained. What's going on with that? And can it be something to attract more students?
So those are fee-based programs, and so are staffed a little differently. And I love that we have the toddlers program at Laguna, and I do see our early learning programs as a pipeline to grow further enrollment. So yes, it's they do in many parts of our district, and then other parts, sometimes it's the early learning experience, and they always were going to go somewhere else because not all parochial schools maybe offer the same thing. And so it might have been that they came to us for that neighborhood experience and then have found another educational opportunity. But for the most part, it is absolutely something that will help us build enrollment. However, especially twos programs are more expensive to staff because the ratios are very different than like our typical K-12 classrooms. And so there's a fine balance there when they get full before we're going to hire more staff. And so it's a delicate balance.
You know what a twos program costs?
Oh, I don't have that committed to memory. I would have to check, but it is on our website, on the Community Ed website.
It probably costs $1,500 a month minimum.
It is much less expensive.
Okay, so that's what I'm saying.
Yes. Yes, it is less expensive than many of the other options out there.
Anyone? I have more questions, but I also feel like a microphone hog. Does anyone else? No? Okay.
Really should be one-stop shop, as much for the parent as for the student. And again, speaking as a parent, I know, like I'll ask my daughter, hey, did you see this from Mr. Ackerson about testing? And she's like, oh yeah, I already got that on Student Square. And so whether she looked at it on her app, because she does have a cell phone, or because she got it through her SUSD email, she already knows that testing's coming up and what the expectation is and what the schedule is going to be. So I think it's really empowered students to get the information, so it's not just me hammering the message. And so from my perspective, professionally, I've been impressed, honestly. There is more work to be done because there are so many features that aren't necessarily being utilized, like field trip permission forms.
I was going to say, I just signed one digitally and it was awesome because
Yay!
like then I was done and I didn't have to harass my kid to bring it in.
So that makes me really happy because I've heard that there's still paper floating around out there, and that can be frustrating to now or sometimes it's an attachment you get, and I'm like, am I going to print this and then sign it? So we're trying really hard to make sure that as people get comfortable, then they start utilizing more features. Like you don't need Sign Up Genius when you can do the volunteer signups in there, or do I need water bottles, or do I need your time and effort? Those kinds of things. So. So yeah, I mean, I think it's been good. I'd love to hear from you all, though.
I love it. It's
Yay!
a
Microphone.
changer if I forget what time the band concert is, or something like that, I'm like, oh, and I just go to Parent Square. It's a one-stop shop, and like kind of what you were saying, I mean, I don't even have to ask. My son knows everything. It's like, hey, did you see? I know, Mom, I already, like, it's awesome. I just love it. So, very important.
Good. Well, thank you for that. Feedback is great, and when there's a misstep, that is important to hear too. So please don't be shy, and let us know when there's room for opportunity. We always, over the summer, I know we don't have our teachers, but I always provide tutorials for new administrators, and then new teacher orientation, and throughout the year try to do some Facebook, or rather Parent Square pro tips in like our teacher newsletters and stuff, especially as it comes around for like conference signups and those kinds of things, because again, theoretically, it should be all in there.
I think it would have been great to have sent out a notice to all the PTOs just at the school, at our school, throughout other schools about this marketing meeting so that they could help promote their PTO. Is it possible for somebody like the PTO or Scottsdale Parent Council to promote these events through Parent Square? And we're willing to pay. Just want to know if it's possible.
So the fact you said willing to pay may be, again, the differentiator there. So this is a platform that the school district pays for. And so if we were to open it up to the PTOs, it could be construed as like gift of public funds, because now we're providing you a tool and you're a separate nonprofit, even though you're wholly in support of what we're doing. The other concern was if the PTO started using it and were promoting an M&O override or an upcoming bond. Now it could be construed as a district platform being engaged in some sort of electioneering. And so we've really worked hard to sort of draw a line so that it is separate. We have many principals that provide sort of the PTO link and or copy and paste their newsletter in so that it is still, quote unquote, one-stop shop. But that is something that we've gone back and forth on, and we'll probably continue to review with legal counsel as we think through ways to better serve our customers, our families.
So is that something the booster guidelines could cover? Because PTOs really shouldn't be promoting an M&O override, right? Like they can if it's, I know you guys can't, but anyway, is that something that could be reviewed? Because it's not a one-stop shop yet, right? I still have to pay attention to my PTO email. We get a lot on Parent Square, but not everything. It sounds like everyone else is getting. And then I also get Peach Jar. So yeah, is that something that you can, like, could someone review what the PTO things are, and even if there is a fee?
Absolutely. It is definitely something that we could explore again. And that might be the right time to take it now that they've got the booster committee meeting. And I do know that you're right. I mean, the boosters are still something you have to pay attention to, the PTOs. And again, I'm just thinking from my own personal experience, it's like Mr. Ferrero will send a reminder, hey, don't forget tonight's like Chipotle night or whatever. So I think our principals are trying to very much be aware and continue to, because the parents are there.
Yeah. So my question about Peach Jar is, I don't know what changed at the beginning of the school year, but it used to be when you sent in a flyer, it was a full size on the email, right? And like you've mentioned click rate and stuff. So now it's a thumbnail and people don't click it, right? Apparently SPC has amazing click rates, and it's like, which means it's over 10%, which is not that exciting. Now it's tiny and you can't see it. And we still get decent numbers from like every now and then Nancy will send numbers from flyers, but can that be shared through Parent Square? Like why do we have, I mean, even like why does Peach Jar still exist? Can we have flyers through Parent Square?
So we do have flyer policy too, so they have to be separate nonprofits. The flyers get approved through legal. I think the concern is that we don't want anybody to ever feel like we're spamming them, quite honestly. And
So how does Peach Jar work? Did I have to opt into that?
you can opt out of it for sure.
And
But
you can't opt out of Parent Square?
no, you cannot opt out of Parent Square. I mean, you could say you didn't want to get school communication, but you cannot opt out entirely because it's how we tell you about lockdowns. It is our emergency notification system.
Is there a way to like have flyers happen through Parent Square, but then you could choose to opt out of those flyers?
No. Not like that singular message, because you would be opting out of like school and district communications. You just cannot opt out of emergency.
So that's not a function in their program?
It is not. That's not to say it won't be someday. I mean, they've added some AI features and some new templates and stuff. So there are always new features on their roadmap, and I can certainly see if this is one of them, but for that reason. And I agree, the functionality has changed, and in my experience, it's not even consistent. I know I'm old, I have my Hotmail email, but sometimes things look different on my Hotmail email than they do on my work Outlook email. So if I'm getting something as an employee versus as a parent, that's where I've noticed some inconsistencies. So I continue to follow up with PR and will again. Sure, yeah. So our budget is, a lot of it is capital, because it is like website. So we have the website, we have Parent Square, we have Let's Talk, and we have Hootsuite that manages all of our social media platforms. And so Constant Contact, some of those kinds of communication platforms that are part of our capital budget. Our M&O budget is different, and then those dollars are sort of the ones that we try to use last, because if they were leftovers, they could roll over. But we also have $570, which are sort of indirect, and those are the ones we try to spend first on outside printing and on advertising and marketing initiatives, especially as it relates to sort of stuff like the real tangibles, like when we got either pull-up banners or step and repeats for our schools, especially when we had ESSER dollars. That's when we really tried to level set across the district, because some of our PTOs that have the means to have already bought that step and repeat for a school, or to have, done some nice tablecloths and those kinds of things. What we tried to do then is just standardize that across the district. We don't have those dollars now. I don't know yet what, actually, I do know, but I don't have committed to my mind right now what it is for next year, but it will be a little bit less, and we know things cost a little bit more. So we're trying not to do as much printing and like those mailers as we once did. But I think it's making us better, because we're better able to measure what success looks like as it relates to those digital marketing efforts.
What are the opportunities for parents to get involved, or the student organizations? I know I remember at the, well, I'm not sure what you called it in November.
Oh, the SUSD Expo.
The
Yeah.
expo in November, there was, a marketing communication students group. Are they able to help with all this?
So, it's funny, because our student advisory board has also focused on creating videos they're all high school students. So they're committed to creating videos at their schools to best highlight the things that they think are coolest about their school. And I'm really excited about that. When we can elevate the student voice, they also want to do more podcasts, which is great too, because there's only so many hours in the day, and right now it's Dr. Menzel and I that are the hosts. And so when we can do more, and then additionally elevate student voice, that's phenomenal. We've also been looking to our CTE students, who are future graphic designers, future marketers, future, if they're writers and they're wanting some public relations experience, those kinds of things. So looking for ways to provide those opportunities, and that's already happening at the school. So I'm thinking of some events where we've had kids come out and volunteer in a role as like either photographer or art students coming out to do face painting or whatever. But specifically with the expo, we really leaned on schools to have some students there to speak to the experience, and then for different sessions to include students. So if a parent went to a CTE session, they might also hear from a student, not just a teacher. And that's where we're really trying to weave in more of that. I mean, our students are our best brand ambassadors, as are our teachers and employees, our parents too. And so where we can, we absolutely appreciate that support.
Is there an ethical problem with Would there be an ethical problem with, for example, having them learn how to do social media marketing and advertising?
So, no, and we have those classes, in fact, and that's part of the entrepreneurship program, even and some of the SCC classes that are being taught at Coronado right now. And so, absolutely, we're open to that. They would not necessarily right now. I mean, we only have so many licenses and our access is pretty tight. So like it's principal or designee that has access to a school social media platform. It is not a student. But we know that student clubs do a lot on social media, and then our high schools will share that out. Like I think about Chaparral, and if you look at Chaparral's marketing and what their students do, and then Megan Bird, who's one of their assistant principals, she's just like a social media mastermind. And so she gets a lot of content from kids, and then she posts it.
Well, I'm a chaparral. I'll be a chaparral parent. They send it out to all the. They send it out to all the community schools that feed into Chaparral. So I've been getting Chaparral stuff since 6th grade, and I love it because
Yeah.
I just know what to prepare for. So
That's
it's
great. And we really do talk with our principals, like with learning communities, and talk about that trajectory. I know, I think about like Matt Patzlaff at Navajo, and what he does is, challenges teachers, like, show me what you did today kind of thing, and they'll send pictures and/or parents will submit stuff, the PTO will submit stuff that he posts on social media. So I think everybody's trying to find their groove, but those are just a couple examples I can think of off the top of my head of where we've been able to sort of expand the number of content creators and yet still keep our system and our sort of security, for lack of a better word, tight. Also, because we have to really be mindful of FERPA. And so if we're posting something as a district or a school, we need to know that that student is photo cleared. Whereas like our parents, and our kids, when they're just taking pictures of each other, they're gonna, sort of post away. We have different considerations.
Sorry, I'm trying to think of how to word my question. Speaking of like making content and all that stuff, I do the PTO Instagram for our school, but then our principal can only do social media through Hootsuite, is that correct?
Yes.
So can they repost or share things that, like, through the Hootsuite? I've never used Hootsuite before.
So they can, and it's especially easy if they're tagged. So if you tag them,
Yeah.
then it is as easy to share. And they use the Hootsuite app.
Okay.
So they have
On the
it,
computer.
theoretically, they have it on their phone.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know that they all did. Some people maybe are more accustomed to using their desktop or laptop, but when they're tagged, they can share.
Okay. All right.
Any other questions? No? Okay, thank you so much, Christine.
Absolutely. This
as
was
always,
lovely.
really informative.
Yeah, I mean, please reach out with any and all ideas because we just love featuring the schools. This is the best part of the job. So thanks for all you guys do. Just one more week, right? Yeah, it's summer.
Okay, so we have a few quick executive board updates, and then we'll run off into the summer. So the first one is the executive board for next year, and is anyone here? I don't think so. Okay. So next year I will still be president. Our treasurer is Piper Hunkins. Our secretary position is open, and then we have 3 vice presidents: Ashley Chambers, Andrea Augustine, and Brad Duell. And as you can tell, we're a little bit small, so our bylaws do allow us to appoint people. So yeah, we might be going on a barnstorming campaign to encourage people to join. If you're interested, please reach out. You can talk to me after the meeting or send me an email. So I want to bring this to your attention. It was brought up in the Q&A with Dr. Menzel, but Prop 123 is still in uncertain, like what the future will be. So this is just some background information about it. It is a source of funding for schools that happen because of, anyway, there's a long history, right? So the legislature was not funding public education in the state adequately. There was a federal lawsuit, and Prop 123 was the response to the federal lawsuit. But so it passed in 2015, and it was only a 10-year thing. And so now we've reached the 10-year point, and it will be it expires at the end of June. And without without a renewal of it, there will be a lot less money coming into schools. So for SUSD, it's like almost 1.4 million. So that's what the italics text is at the bottom that will be affected. So if you have any opinions about this, you need to communicate with your elected officials before May 19th, because that's when they're they're on recess until then, and then they're going to start moving forward with this at that point. And if you need help finding your elected officials, let me know. I can, there's like a website. You can put in your address and find out who your elected representatives are. Yeah. Oh, Lisa on side. Yeah.
If you do want more information, a lot of good background on it, ASBA, their website, they have kind of the breakdown from when it was passed in 2016 to what it looks like now for 2025.
Okay. Any rep announcements, school rep announcements?
I am a parent and perhaps a representative from Copper Ridge. I want to report that our middle school, which is grades 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, are now going to be all honors. So every 5th grader going to the 6th grade is going to be taking all honors classes next year, and all 7th and 8th graders as well.
Okay, our budget, so pretty much all of our expenses happen at the end of the year. So we just renewed our insurance, Zoom, our accounting software will renew probably in the next couple of weeks. The website is actually a 3-year renewal, so that was like $350, and then we renewed our domain name, which was like 30 something. Mail, email is monthly, and then our post office box. So May was a mid-April to mid-May is a very expensive month, but it's pretty much all of our expenses at one time, except for meeting reservations, which happened at the beginning of the school year. Anyway, so we came really close to hitting we did hit our school donation goal and very close to hitting our individual donations. And I have to give a shout out to, I don't know if you want to be named, but one person who did a very big $500 donation to us, which is awesome, and thank you very much. Yeah, so that's it for this year. Have a wonderful summer. We will be scheduling our August meeting pretty soon, the topic, and as soon as we have that out, I'll send it out and start getting it. We're also going to hopefully redo the website and get all of the meeting dates, like as soon as you type in our URL, the homepage, it'll show you everything that you need to know without having to click as much. And yeah, and if you have any questions, meeting topics, anything you want to see, we love those, right? We love suggestions. So yeah, let me know. Thank you so much.